In 1969, Mike Matthews and Bob Myers created the first Big Muff pedal, changing the sound of rock and roll forever. The Big Muff has been one of the most popular pedals ever made, with legendary status among distortion pedals, making that wall of sound accessible to the masses with only a guitar. The Big Muff is known for its mid-scoop sound and its amazing sustain. The original Muff, known as the Triangle Muff, had 3 controls on it: a volume, a tone, and a sustain. All right, real quick, we're gonna look at the EQ curve of the Big Muff. So as you can see here, this is what the tone knob is going to affect. And so you can see there's a big dip right at like 1,000 hertz. So that's where it gets its like mid-dip sound. But as you turn it down, that kind of goes away and you start to roll off the highs. So as you can see, as you go all the way to 0, boost the bass and the highs just kind of roll off. And then when you do the opposite, it kind of shelves the bass and raises the highs. So you get more mid-range and more highs. So it can get like a wide range of tones. And this is going to be different from Big Muff. This might be different from Big Muff to Big Muff, but this is just kind of the general like tone curve of that. First popular known use of the Big Muff was on the 1972 ballad by the Carpenters, Goodbye to Love, played in the solo section by Tony Peluso. Also appearing on the 1974 hit by the Isley Brothers, That Lady. First major player to popularize the Big Muff was none other than Pink Floyd's David Gilmour. In 1976, David Gilmour started using it to get soaring leads, can first be heard on the Animals album, also The Wall. He's a popular user of this pedal and has been using it to this day. He also famously used it on this solo. Nowadays, there are dozens of variations, and some vintage models go for thousands of dollars. And these vintage ones can be unique because they weren't always using the exact same components. They would kind of use whatever was available, so there's inconsistencies among them. So there's a bit of a hunting aspect to finding the right vintage muff. As the 1970s went on, the Big Muff started being adopted by more artists of varying genres, even making an appearance on the Misfits' Static Age album. This was likely the op-amp version, that's the version that came out around that time, but there's kind of no way of knowing. In the 80s, the Big Muff started to get popular in the underground alternative scene that was quietly growing throughout the decade. One of those bands was Mudhoney, who sung the praises of the Big Muff in their 1988 album, Super Fuzz Big Muff. But the biggest decade for the Big Muff was yet to come. In 1991, a small band from Seattle exploded into the mainstream, changing the course of music. Although Kurt's sound would later be known as the DS1, one of their big hits did contain the Big Muff. Although Nirvana was wildly popular, they aren't the band that I would attribute to most popularizing the Big Muff in the 90s. I think that honor goes to Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins. With their 1993 album Siamese Dream, you can hear the Big Muff with its overblown distortion on many tracks, eventually becoming the signature sound of Billy Corgan. Billy Corgan is even quoted as saying, "The Big Muff changed the entire course of the album," when speaking about Siamese Dream. Billy has said he's used the op-amp version of the Big Muff through a cranked Marshall JCM 800 to get that sound that you hear on Siamese Dream. Another notable artist whose sound was defined by the Big Muff through the 90s was none other than Dinosaur Jr. Although not as commercially successful as the Smashing Pumpkins, Jay Mascis is a close second for popularizing the Big Muff in the 90s, influencing many guitar players in the underground and alternative scenes still to this day. Through the 90s, the Big Muff was used on countless records, from rock to alternative to nu metal. And if there was a guitar sound that was to define the 90s, I would say it would have to be the Big Muff. Going into the 2000s with the garage revival scene, you see new bands such as the White Stripes taking on the mantle of wielding the Big Muff. And in 2001, they released their album, White Blood Cells, with this song featuring the Big Muff. And on into the 2010s, you see bands such as the Black Keys using the Big Muffs to get that powerful distortion sound to come grab you through the speakers. To this day, guitar players are discovering the joys of the Big Muff and the wall of sound it produces. It can be hard to get accurate information about who used what pedal on what song, especially when the songs are 30 years old. I know there's a lot of bands and a lot of Muff users that I didn't talk about on here, but that's your time to shine. Leave a comment down below and tell me which of your favorite songs or bands use the Big Muff.